let's get into the content. So the final video today is going to be about Neil Cuckman and his conversation with another person called Alex Garland. Now, this conversation is interesting. We're not going to go over the whole thing. It's 53 minutes long. We're not doing the whole thing. We're going to do the last 10 minutes. Because the last 10 minutes, they talk about Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet. Now, he reveals some information about Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet. And he also mentioned something about like religion and how nobody cares about it, which is why they decided to do a story on it. It's weird. So we're going to go over it and let's see where we're at. This is starting at 43 minutes and 17 seconds into the video. Let's go.
We've been working on this project at Naughty Dog for 4 years now. We just announced it. It's called Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet. It's our venture into more sci-fi stuff.
What kind of sci-fi? Like, I mean, obviously I know you, but is it like you talking deep space? Are you talking about, is it earthbound?
It's not earthbound. It's it takes place 2,000 years in an alternate future that deviates in the late 80s.
Wow.
And we spent like years just coming up with that timeline, and it's dealing with, it's funny. It's like, I joke about this with the team. It's like, oh, we made a game with The Last of Us 2. We made certain creative decisions. I got us a lot of hate. A lot of people love it, but a lot of people hate that game.
Who gives a shit?
Exactly.
Who gives a shit? Okay. Interesting. You know, I like how these people have this kind of like confidence to say, oh, people hate your product. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit, right? Who cares if the people that you're trying to sell your product to hate it? Who cares? It's like, bro, I understand having that level of confidence and trying to portray it to the haters. I get it. But you realize that it's not just haters, right? You realize that there are genuine fans of Naughty Dog out there that didn't like what they saw with that trailer. I think it's ridiculous to say, who gives a shit to these people when they clearly give a shit? You think people are angry because they just want to be angry? No, they're usually fans of Naughty Dog that are wondering what the fuck you're doing and why you're deviating so hard from your products that were loved in the past. I think that's a fair question to ask as a fan of Naughty Dog, which a lot of people are.
The joke is like, you know what? Let's do something that people.
Although to be fair, The Last of Us 2 lost a lot of goodwill with Naughty Dog for a lot of people. But before that, they were banging. Before that, they were absolutely killing it.
People won't care as much about. Let's make a game about faith and religion.
He says nobody would care about it if he made a video game about faith and religion, which apparently this game is about. So Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet is a game about faith and religion.
So there is just we not only in this alternate history timeline, we've made this where the timeline deviates, this new religion becomes pretty prominent, and then we spend years just building out this religion of like from the original prophet all the way how it gets like changed and sometimes bastardized and evolves over all these years, and then like all these people from this.
How many? You said 2,000 years?
2,000.
Coincidentally, 2,000 years.
Coincidentally, 2,000.
Yeah, you know why he said that, right? Because obviously 2,000 years. You get it. You get it.
And this whole religion takes place on this one planet, and then at one point, all communication stops from this planet.
Nice.
And
yeah, Steve, the links in the chat is actually right. So the overarching story that he's saying right now is getting dangerously close to the leaks that were shown earlier last year. If you guys remember, I did a video on the leaks with Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet and the supposed storyline for the game, and everything he's saying here, for the most part, is pretty much almost lining up with what was leaked so far.
You're playing a bounty hunter that's chasing her bounty, and she crash lands on this planet. And it's and I really wanted to make a game about faith and religion, but also about
this. It sounds
just being lonely. So many of the previous games we've done, there's always like an ally with you, and you're talking. I was like, I really want you to be lost in a place that you're really confused about what happened here. Who are the people here? What was their history? And in order to get off this planet, like, again, no one has been heard from this planet for 600 years. So if you ever have hoped to have a chance to get off, you have to figure out what happened here.
There are so many questions I could ask you, but I'm not going to, because it would put you on the spot, I think. And also,
I'll cut it if I say the wrong thing. It's fine.
Well, but also, I do think that So as like, I'm sure you've gathered by now, like a serious fan, I would like to encounter that story knowing as little as possible. And I don't love the process of selling things because I feel one is diminishing it.
I've gotten in trouble actually because of trying to protect the story. We've released a trailer for Last of Us 2 where we faked a shot and we showed Joel somewhere where he would never make it to because of things that happened in that story.
As a deliberate
way to throw off the scent.
Yeah.
And
so they have faked things in the past to try to throw off people who knew about the story and knew about the leaks. Because remember, Naughty Dog has suffered from leaks in the past where the leaks about the storylines have been true when they got leaked, which is why a lot of people are believing the leaks about Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet. And the ironic thing is, they bait and switched people into basically playing The Last of Us 2, only to find out that Joel gets fucking killed anyway. So you're openly admitting that you bait and switched people to try to protect the story, but really, the only thing you were trying to protect was your own asses. You would try to protect your asses and protect your sales figures because you didn't want people to know the truth about what you were about to do in the story and how you were going to ruin one of everybody's favorite characters in The Last of Us. That's the only reason why you did that. It wasn't to protect the story. You don't give a fuck about that. You wanted to protect your ass.
People that didn't like the game accused that of being false advertisement.
So again, who gives a shit?
That's so crazy how somebody in the chat said, isn't that trailer considered false advertising? And he literally just says people were saying that's considered false advertising. And what does this moron on the right say? Who gives a shit? What do you mean, who gives a shit, bro? What do you mean? How do you say that with all your chest? What do you mean, who gives a shit if that's false? So are you okay with people getting falsely advertised to? What the fuck? What's next? Oh, yeah, the game was a bait and switch. Who gives a shit? What? What? Do you give a shit about anything?
I would love to go into that story because although yes, these things have to be sold, and the way they are sold, it seems, is by creating trailers that tell the entire story. I as an individual have a choice to not access those things, and so I try not to. And it's one of the benefits of not being on social media, actually, is that I'm immunized from so much conversation. So I will be
makes sense. So he's not on social media, so he doesn't really understand the full context or the full effect of the conversation happening. I'm sure he does, but he's going to pretend like he doesn't.
To arrive at this game knowing very little, but what you've described sounds fantastic.
Oh, thanks.
And so smart as well.
Oh, it's so we still have a ways to go, but I'm
sure.
kind of very excited to see. And it's like, again, these things are so complex and big, and there's so many people involved. It's like I still don't know exactly what this thing is going to look like at the end. It's like I have a theory, I have an idea.
I'm honestly surprised that they haven't experienced lawsuits for that, or maybe they did and I don't know about it. But I'm honestly surprised. I really am. And now he's trying to do the whole bait and switch thing again, or he's trying to lie to people. He's trying to say he has no idea how this thing is going to come together, bro. You guys really believe that? If they announce the game, they 100% have an idea of where they're going with this game. I guarantee you the script's already made, the story's already fleshed out, and they're just building the game together. He knows exactly where this is going to go. He's just trying to tell people, oh, well, we have no idea where it's going to go, because he's trying to make people not believe the leaks that happen. I guarantee you the leaks end up being true. How much you want to bet?
But it's still evolving and changing as we're making it.
Cool. Awesome. Can't wait.
Okay, so you've been successful in a bunch of different mediums, right? You said you worked in comics and novels.
I've worked in a bunch of different mediums, yeah.
But you've also been successful. And I've heard you say in some interviews you need to take a break from directing.
Yeah, I have done, yeah.
Some people have misinterpreted that as if you're retiring. I'm curious, asking for a friend, when is it enough? When is it time to stop the compulsion?
It's a good question, and compulsion is the word. It is the word. I think writing is the product of compulsion. for that reason, it's not a free will issue.
I think most people understand that Neil Cuckman is trying to get into Hollywood. I think that's pretty obvious. He's trying to get into Hollywood, and he's utilizing his resume of single-player narrative games as a means to try to get into Hollywood. And he essentially tried to get his foot in the door with The Last of Us Season 1. And The Last of Us Season 2 is going to probably solidify him as going into Hollywood. I would imagine that The Heretic Prophet's going to be his last game. I would imagine that he is going to announce his retirement from video game making after The Heretic Prophet launches. And they're going to, or he's going to get into TV shows, movies, or whatever. Yeah, him on the red carpet was hilarious. Everybody ignored him. It was so sad. But you know what? Props to him for going out there, even though he knew people were going to ignore him. So I think that's basically it for the video. Let me see.
It's like you either have the compulsion at that moment or you don't. And I do find that even when I am not working I have nothing to work on, I am just jotting down story ideas. And I don't know why. I really don't know why. It's quite either Zen or existential or something.
I think it's done. All right, I think it's done. It's one big circle jerk at this point. So that's the information that we got on Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet. And I got to be honest with you guys, this interview has led me to believe that the leaks that we got earlier about the story are most likely going to be true. Majority, maybe not the whole thing, but majority, I got to imagine, is probably going to be true. And do not underestimate that when those leaks happen, considering how early the leaks happened, it was almost immediately, and the game is nowhere near release yet. Do not get it twisted. The chances of Neil Cuckman changing things up after the leaks happen to make it seem like the leaks weren't true. He could still change some things up. He can still alter the story in some way, shape, or form, even after the leaks. So, you never know what might happen from that point. But I really think as of right now, they were true. And now he's trying to do exactly what he did with The Last of Us 2, which is throw people off to try to make it seem like they're not true.